Semyon Varlamov recorded his second straight shutout, and the Islanders clamped down and held on to the lead. We have our key takeaways from this big win in Washington and a full preview of Saturday's game against the Carolina Hurricanes. All this and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the weekend edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And now you can also find us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On Islanders. Well, the Islanders get a big win and get some players back, but they lose a player as well. We'll break all of that down. But if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Isles, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Well, a big win for the New York Islanders. They beat the Washington Capitals 3-0 in the big story, obviously. Semyon Varlamov, 32 saves to earn the shutout. And, that is the second straight shutout for Varley. He has been on fire. And when you consider a couple of factors, what Varlamov has been able to do is indeed very impressive. Number one, all three of his starts have been on the road. That automatically is tougher on a goalie. Not only is the crowd against you, but the other team has the final change so they can get the matchups that they want. And then you throw in the fact that Varlamov is not the starter. He's playing, one out of every 3 games on average, and has to sit behind Ilya Sorokin. When you're playing 1 game a week, let's say, it is not as easy to stay sharp than if you're playing 2 out of every 3 games. And to see the Islanders get this kind of quality backup goaltending from Semyon Varlamov is huge for this team. And look, let's compare what Varley did to Darcy Kemper of Washington, who clearly struggled, did not make a save through the entire first period. The Islanders took 2 shots on goal in the first period, and they both went in. That was not a pretty game for Kemper, and that was front and center the big difference in this game. And the other thing I really liked, in addition to Varley playing well, is that the Islanders were able to dominate Washington's top line. Alexander Ovechkin, Dylan Strome, and Tom Wilson. Yeah, they combined for 8 shots on goal, which is, not awesome for a first line, 3 players combined, but not ridiculously bad either. It's a solid outing, 8 shots on goal for your top line, but each one of them was a -3. All 3 Islander goals, and they all came at even strength. All 3 Islander goals were against that top line, and what the Islanders were able to do was take advantage of the defensive deficiencies of that line. And I think the new, coaching staff in Washington, they're not playing as well defensively as a team. The Islanders cashed in, and it wasn't the number of opportunities, but the way the team took advantage of them, and that is encouraging as well. Ryan Pelech getting the first goal of the game a mere 22 seconds in. And, you know, that, again, when you're on the road especially, that sets the tone right off the bat, and it was great to see. And surprise, surprise, what line was out there for that goal? Oh, yeah, Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri. Nelson scores the third goal. That line, the so-called second line, continues to play very well. And another encouraging thing, the third line, the J.G. Pageau line, gets on the board. Simon Holmstrom with a very nice goal midway through the first period, his second of the year. And Pageau and Fasching with the helpers, that was encouraging. I am still, I don't believe Simon Holmstrom is a first-line player at this stage in his career. But I do see a little bit more this year, a little more confidence and a little more of the talent that made him a first-line player. Now, he's got to shoot more. He's got to be more consistent. But I think we are seeing a small step forward this year from Simon Holmstrom. And I think he's a very good fit on the third line for this team, and getting that goal, certainly a big, big help. Otherwise, though, if you sort of look at the way this team played, by the way, okay, one other thing, Lane Lambert, got to talk about Lane. Rightfully, we criticized him after what he did with the line changes, on Monday, and it, the Islanders had a 2-0 lead, and they ended up blowing the lead after he juggled the lines. He did some smart things today, including a very wise challenge in the third period, with plenty of time left, I might add. With the Islanders up 3-0, it looked like the Capitals had scored a goal to get on the board, and everyone's thinking, okay, here they come. And yet they challenge for goaltender interference on the replay. TJ Oshie clearly in the crease and interfering with Varley. It was a great challenge. So for the coaches up in the booth and for Lane Lambert, good use of the challenge. It preserved the shutout. And let's face it, folks, it was deserved, because this team just got the job done. The first two periods for the Islanders, really, honestly, they were okay. But their best period was the third. And even though they were, comfortably ahead 3-0 after 40 minutes, with this team, it's relatively comfortably ahead. But even though they're ahead after 40 minutes, and they didn't add to the lead in the third period, the way this team shut things down, they played their best period in the third period when they were protecting a lead. And even if they were shaky early on, I mean, the first period, they had the 2-0 lead, but they were sloppy in their own zone, and Varley bailed them out time and again. The fact that they were able to clamp down after failing to do so against Detroit just a couple of days earlier on Monday was very encouraging. That this team made adjustments, they learned, and they did what they had to do. And, seeing that really was encouraging to me, just as an Islanders fan, to see this team do what it needed to do. And when you're up 2-0 in the third, or in this case, up 3-0 in the third, you should be winning 98% of the time. The fact that they were able to do that and didn't let it happen twice in a row was very, very encouraging. And I, for one, am thrilled with the performance of the New York Islanders in the third period, even though they didn't score. in that period. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will have our hero and GOAT of the game. That will be coming up. We'll also talk about some of the players who returned to the lineup and made big contributions and some concerning injury news. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a goaltender who was with the team in the late 90s. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Parkview Advance. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped business secure working capital. From $5,000 to $1.5 million, Parkview Advance can improve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling us at 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? Well, if you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match assessments and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for the quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So the big news, the Islanders made two changes to the lineup, and I have to say they both worked out really, really well, and that is certainly encouraging. Obviously, Scott Mayfield returning to the lineup, and that was big. Mayfield playing 21 minutes and 21 seconds. He blocked 3 shots, had a takeaway, even picked up an assist, and yeah, he was a +2. And he really helped on the penalty kill as well, added 3 shots on goal. So a very solid return. And, you know, you had to be a little concerned about Mayfield because he hadn't been in the lineup since opening day. That's 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago. To have him back and able to contribute and play more than 21 minutes in this game, very, very encouraging. And I'll take it a step further. Because, and this was the bad injury news, Adam Pelech left the game in the first period, looked like he was in a lot of pain. It looked like either a hip or a knee after a collision, not saying it was an intentional collision, but Pelech leaves. He only plays 3 minutes and 24 seconds. And having Mayfield there instead of Samuel Bolduc, it would have been very difficult to have 5 defensemen if 2 of them were Sebastian Aho and Samuel Bolduc in their own zone. The fact that they had Mayfield back and in the very game that Pelech goes down really was a big help to this team on Thursday night. And great to see Mayfield back in the lineup. Then the other change, Oliver Wahlstrom sits. Hudson Fasching comes in, and Fasching with an assist. He's a +1. He had a hit and a block shot. Only played 8 minutes and 50 seconds. least among all Islander forwards, but you could clearly see Hudson Fasching doing the things that made him successful last year, that he didn't necessarily do as well in the first few appearances he made earlier this season. He had better chemistry with Pajot and Holmstrom than I think Oliver Wahlstrom had over the last few games. He dug in the corners. He protected the puck. He was sound in his own zone, back checking, good on the forecheck. Look, Hudson Fasching is a bottom six forward. He is not an all-star, but every team needs guys who were willing to do that dirty work, and he came in and did it. If there was a message that Hudson Fasching got by, not playing for, 4 games, he certainly took the message to heart. Now, the key, if you're Hudson Fasching, is to continue to do that, not to sit back and say, oh, I'm back in the lineup. Everything is all set. I'm going to be in the lineup all the time now. No. If you're Hudson Fasching, you got to keep working. You need to stay in the lineup. You need to earn it. And let's hope that Fasching continues to do that, because Fasching and Holmstrom flanking Pajot, to me, looks like a potentially decent third line. And the fact that they scored a goal and just created a few, in the last few games, the third line, in fact, for most of the season, you didn't even notice they were there. You had to go back and say, oh, yeah, did JG Pajot play last night? Did they do anything? Do you remember anything memorable that was positive? And the answer was usually no. Well, last night against the Capitals, you noticed the third line out there, and Fasching was part of the reason that they played better. As for our hero and GOAT of the game, Semyon Varlamov has got to be the hero. I can't imagine picking anybody else. As for the GOAT, yeah, real tough to pick a GOAT in this game. I'd rather go with a second hero, and that would be Brock Nelson, who had a goal and an assist to pace the team. But there were so many others. There really wasn't anyone who I want to even symbolically give the GOAT of the game to. When you win on the road 3-0, that's a solid effort. Nobody stood out as a GOAT. So to me, I'll go with Brock Nelson as hero 1.1. But the real hero of the game has got to be Varley with the shutout. All right. We have got more to get to on today's episode. We'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, and the Islanders head back home to play another big, tough divisional opponent, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes, the team that eliminated them from the playoffs last spring. So big emotional game coming up for the Islanders, and we'll have a full preview of it coming up next. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, and BetterHelp, basically, I'm telling you right now, this is something that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How do you feel about the end of the year season? Do you look forward to the holidays, or maybe you struggle with seasonal blues? Well, I know this time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it, but adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded and to give you the tools to manage everything that's going on. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime at no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. So the Islanders have a game coming up Saturday against the Carolina Hurricanes. And we all know how the Islanders season ended last year against Carolina, losing that series. And look, the Canes, they're not that far. In fact, the Islanders technically right now are ahead of them in the standings. Carolina 6-5. They just lost to the New York Rangers last night, 2-1. So, they're now going to face the Islanders, and the Islanders have the same number of points as Carolina with 2 games in hand. So there is that. And, the Canes got off to a very shaky start and then started to pick their game up. That loss to the Rangers ended a 3-game winning streak. And the big surprise for Carolina has been shaky defense. They were ranked near the bottom of the league. They were ranked 30th going into the game against the Rangers. And again, they only gave up 2 goals in that game. But defense being a problem, scoring not a problem. And usually a Rod Brindamore coached team is very solid defensively. Their power play, 7th in the league, penalty kill 22nd. So the Islanders need to make sure they stay out of the box. And, right now, Teuvo Teravainen, he is off to a great start. 8 goals in the first, 10 games of the season. And he just keeps on playing very well. Seth Jarvis also picking it up. He has 5 goals after last night. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, he was leading the team in scoring with 10 points in 10 games. So we're seeing, some of these guys do their thing. Sebastian Aho kind of banged up and had 6 points in 7 games, but only 1 goal. And Martin Necas, 9 points in 10 games. So this is a team that has been playing well offensively, but struggling a little bit defensively, and that is a little bit unusual. But they did only give up 2 goals and still lost in a more typical Carolina Hurricanes kind of a style of play against the Rangers on Thursday. The line combinations, Sebastian Aho centering Andrei Svechnikov and Seth Jarvis. That's the top line. Kotkaniemi centers Michael Bunting and Teuvo Teravainen on the second line. Jordan Staal still going strong. He's the third line center. Jordan Martinook and Jesper Fast on either side of him. And then Jack Drury centers Stefan Nason and Martin Necas on the fourth line. Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns, a dangerous top combination. Brady Shea and Jalen Chatfield are the second pair on defense. And then Dmitry Orlov and Tony DeAngelo. This is a good, deep defensive core. The goalies, Frederick Anderson and Antti Ranta. And we will see who the Islanders end up facing right now. Anderson went against the Rangers, so it is more likely that Ranta will be in goal. But don't forget Peter Kochetkov. He's already started 2 games and played 2 games, but he hasn't played well. So, the goaltending needs to pick up. I think it will be Sorokin and Ranta on Saturday. But again, we have to see. It is, by the way, a 7:30 Eastern time start. And look, like all Islander games, home and road, it is you can catch every minute of this Islanders hometown broadcast on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Islanders. All right, so the keys to the game. First of all, again, stay out of the penalty box. They did a much better job of that against the Capitals. They've got to keep doing that in the game against the Carolina Hurricanes because they do have a lot of dangerous players who can be damaging, and get some pressure on this goaltending unit and this defense that right now seems to be just sort of finding itself, but has struggled early on in the season. And, again, we have to hope that all 6 top defensemen are healthy, because you don't want to go up against a talented Hurricanes team without your best defensive players. And I'll tell you right now, Adam Pelech would be a huge loss for the New York Islanders, and we'll certainly keep you up to date on that. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And this one, well, former Islanders goalie Eric Fichaud, he is going to turn 48 years old on Saturday, a first-round pick, 16th overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs back in 1994, but made his NHL debut with the Islanders in 95-96, stayed with the Isles for parts of 3 seasons, 95-96, 96-97, and then in 97-98, he split time between the IHL and the Islanders, then went on to play for Nashville, Carolina, Montreal, and then finished his career in the minors, spent part of 1 season in Germany, only played in 95 NHL games, had a 3.14 goals against average in those games, and an .897 save percentage. Quite honestly, when Eric Fichaud was the Islanders goalie, you're going back to the Fisherman jersey era, and he didn't really have a good team in front of him. But one of his better games as an Islander, March 9th, 1996, at the Winnipeg Arena against the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, Eric Fichaud, the goalie for the Islanders, Nikolai Khabibulin, the goalie for the Winnipeg Jets. And in this game, the Islanders outshot 40-33, but 38 saves for Eric Fichaud on the road as the Islanders beat the Jets by a score of 4-2. Derek Armstrong had a goal and an assist to pace the Islanders, and the game winner went to Brian McCabe. But Eric Fichaud, the story in this one, as the 5'11", 171-pound native of Anjou, Quebec, stood on his head to get the Islanders a win. And again, a good moment right there for Eric Fichaud. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, Monday, we will be back. We will have our key takeaways from the game, the big game against Carolina. Those divisional games, even more important, they are worth 4 points. Make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.